You know what came out in August? The study that f***ed my breakfast.
We're back. KATABASIS podcast is back from a short hiatus as I've been living and breathing in New York. And every time I come back, we're absolutely going to do at least one podcast. And we're going to begin this podcast with it's going to be a thematical Q&A. Okay, and we're going to be talking about some really interesting topics here. We're going to start with nutrition, then go to gut, then go to gear, PEDs/steroids. Okay, so we're going to start with so stay tuned for the end, depending on what you want to hear here. We're going to talk about, can bananas make the blueberries and berries that you put in your smoothies redundant? The magnesium bread that we talk about, if you can't get that, what can you do? How much should you take? Brazil nuts and Hashimoto's, gluten-free for these other thyroid conditions like Hashimoto's. And then we're going to talk about improving the gut through zinc and B1. And then we're going to go to reducing blood pressure for people on gear, and then favorite supplements for TRT and people who are blasting steroid cycles. And how do you manage the blood pressure so you don't just fall over one day and have a heart attack? And this is what we're going to talk about today. Good to see you, my friend.
You too, man. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too long.
And then you just had your crew down at Mornington Peninsula again.
Yes, we did.
Rocking the ice baths.
Absolutely, rocking the ice baths. We did infrared sauna. I just want to shout out to infrared sauna and how trash it is because they take so long to get hot.
Yeah.
So dry saunas are the best. But to talk about the weekend, I did my Trinity retreat. For those who don't know, Trinity is what I believe to be designed to be the best, most comprehensive coaching mentorship from a business skill set and personal development perspective. And we had our second retreat, and I took the guys to Mornington, a little private location, and we had 3 days together where we were learning. I did big foundations on the gut. I co-hosted one of my colleagues, Jordan Radley, for an ACL rehab workshop, which went great. And then we just had some great downtime where, we were connecting and having some deep, great conversations, which actually is, funnily enough, often people's favorite part is when they get that community and connection together and everybody walked away with like a consistent theme. And that's how important environment is, and being around like-minded, inspiring people who are on the similar path to you. And it really gives me a signal that we need more of this. And I'm really excited to do more of it. And I'm planning the next one actually going to be in Sydney in February. And I'm very looking forward to that. And I love all my people, my Trinity mentees. I love you all. And I can't wait to do more of it. So it's very fulfilling. And I live a little bit vicariously through the Discord channel dedicated to these Trinity guys because I've got access to that, obviously. And it looks like a lot of fun, man. Like I can see the value of education that you're providing them is very high. I also know the theme of whatever's currently being taught because it permeates through all of their content. I see some pretty good, and obviously you're a bit of a go-to on the content creation side of things as well. So it's good to see, man. I like that. They're really taking your lead. Yeah, it's an honor, it's a privilege, and it's the hardest thing I've probably ever done in my career. It's consuming, but it's I know this is probably the most impactful thing I've ever done. And it's a great honor, and I look forward to getting you involved. So for my Trinity guys listening, make sure you message Ben and tell him we want you down for a workshop to come talk.
Look, I knocked you back because my sleep has been shit. That's why I knocked you back. You only have to look at my Instagram stories to realize that I got 3 little kids right now. 2 of them are having a massive regression in their sleep, which has led to dad being inundated in the bed.
How's that been? I think a lot of people don't know listening.
Very hard. So my sleep has just been absolutely annihilated, which has been, it's even been hard doing things like this, like getting in front of cameras, doing my content, things where, you just got to really be on point. Man, it's been hard.
Are you leaning a lot on caffeine?
Yes and no.
Why not?
Because I've learnt worse, historically as well. And I think just time and better judgment has sort of like led to not having to do so much now.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, man, I trained twice last week. You know what I mean? So it's those things about, and that sort of comes into like when people ask me about, what's changed since, turning 40 or being a parent. It's like the way that I program, I do full body workouts now, knowing full well that there's a high likelihood that I probably won't get 5 sessions in per week. And I don't like missing things.
How do you deal with that mentally? from an expectation management perspective?
Look, I just have an understanding that it takes sacrifice.
Yeah.
Time will tell it's worth it, that kind of thing. So, yeah. It is what it is.
Right. Yeah, it's just situations, it's the bed you make, and it's a situation I'm going to be in the near future anyway too. So you don't do a lot of caffeine. I've seen some stuff on even, I think it's nicotine being used for cognition, and like this stack of like caffeine, nicotine, noise cancelling headphones, just bright light, like super productivity kind of focus space. Do you ever lean on a combination like that in times like this? I don't think so.
No. Like, I've tried a lot of different things, including the different nootropics, and some of them I really even think I have to be careful of, but the best combination is something we talked about recently, the Kriegotine. We had Lucas, Ergogenic Health, on here. Shout out to him. Shout out to the Kriegotine team, because, they have that novel guanidoacetic acid kind of combo product, which I found very useful for cognition. In fact, probably the best supplement I've used personally in the last couple of years.
Guys, they're going to clip that. That's a great promo.
They want me to. They've reached out. They're a very nice crew.
Yeah.
They have been on me, and they've been very supportive. They've sent me some free kits. They know who I'm dealing with clientele as well. So when people ask me about this for like a performance enhancing benefit, I'm like, look, I don't know yet. My training is going as well as it's going to go. Like, right. I don't think I'm going to notice any significant change in my performance based on that product. But I can tell you right now, it's a different situation when it comes to cognition, and that's because of the chronic fatigue. And that's why when I'm using it with the clientele, it's like, so have you got everyone on it? I'm like, no. My hypothyroid clients, my chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, post-chemotherapy, they're the ones. Some ones with some serious mental and cognitive kind of issues, they're the ones I'm experimenting with. And I've had a few people ask me questions on, some of the potential downsides of it. And one of the things that's in the literature is because you're basically upregulating the creatine synthesis, a byproduct of that is an elevated homocysteine.
So it depletes B vitamins? Is that what's happening?
Well, yeah, you need to make sure that you're having adequate B vitamins, but they've done studies on that. So if you concurrently take B9, folate, B12, TMG, so trimethylglycine, in conjunction with the GAA, that's the component in this, you abolish the hyperhomocysteinemia. Okay, so that's there. But I think that's worth tracking. If you're someone who's high on the homocysteine side of things, then you're going to use this product. You're probably going to see an elevation into an area that you don't want to go. Right. So then it would make sense, test, fortify, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so get a health practitioner in your corner and to monitor that stuff.
But very impressed with their product nonetheless.
Yeah, shout out. I still haven't taken it. It's in my cupboard. I'm going to take it. Look forward to it. Superhero cognition coming soon. Mm-hmm. Let's get into these questions.
Well, the first question actually goes on to that as well. So, because we only got talking about one product, but one of the other things I like just from my cognitive prowess, under times of sleep deprivation, is my blueberry smoothie. And you know what came out in August? The study that fucked my breakfast. Man, we're gonna shout out, the good thing about this was, because I did that reel on blueberries and it went quite well for someone of my caliber. And so I had a few followers and clients send me this clip that went viral on TikTok by Distilled Science is his name. Shout out, because I found him through this and he's pretty funny. He's a very much a geek up our alley. But anyway, so he shared the results of a study that was done in August in which they were basically looking at bananas that contain a compound called polyphenol oxidase, which is a component that breaks down the polyphenols. Now, the polyphenols are these wonderful substances in plants, blueberries being amazingly high in them. They give them a lot of their health benefits. And what they were looking at is the bananas that contain so much of this enzyme that breaks that down, can that really be detrimental to these high polyphenol foods? And of course, what does everyone love to mix in their smoothies, man? Blueberries and bananas.
Come on, son.
It is
classic.
A combination from heaven itself. So anyway, they did a study and they basically looked. They didn't actually put blueberries and bananas in the same smoothie. What they did is that a blueberry smoothie, a banana smoothie, and a placebo, and then they took them with a cocoa-derived polyphenol. Okay, and then what they looked at, they measured the blood markers for the polyphenol content. Now, the blueberry one, you saw a big raise in the polyphenols, which was great. The banana one, you saw basically nothing. It literally abolished the polyphenol content in that group. And so in his video, he's sort of going on to say, well, look, if you mix the blueberries with the bananas, there's very likely to be a similar outcome. And I tend to agree with him.
From a theoretical mechanistic perspective, it makes sense.
Yeah, it's different polyphenols that they tested, but in theory, like they're very similar, and it should have a very similar outcome. So basically, what that's telling us is that the combination of bananas with blueberries at the same time in your smoothie, you're highly likely to knock out one of the best reasons, aside from taste, that you're using the blueberries from a nutritional benefit perspective.
And here's why that's relevant, because a lot of you are going to use these in your protocols. You're going to use we use blueberries as a nutritional intervention to improve certain markers of health. Okay, maybe blood pressure, for example, anything we need to increase polyphenols, and you're going to use this with the intention of seeing a certain outcome, and then you don't see the outcome necessarily as good as you want to. It's like, why didn't that work? Maybe because of this combination. This is a nuance here.
But this is the thing, and people will turn around and say, oh, why are you guys being so nuanced? Like, can't we just have our banana and blueberry smoothie? And I'm like, do whatever you want.
Yeah,
like,
it's cool.
But we are about optimization and recognizing the influence of one nutrient on another as it relates to nutrition. And you don't have to get so caught up emotionally about it, because you could think about it in something that you're just not tied into. And that could be, we talked about, I don't know if this is one of the questions, but if someone has anemia, and they're an iron deficiency anemia, like a legitimate one, they need to be aware of certain foods or nutraceuticals that could inhibit the absorption of that iron. So not being a big tea drinker, potentially coffee, these other bioflavonoids, that will prevent the absorption of iron. You need to be careful of that. So if you have a stubborn iron deficiency anemia, yet you're drinking green tea every time you have iron, you can literally stop the absorption of up to 90% of that iron from those meals, and wondering why your iron levels aren't improving.
Right.
So that would make sense. And if you're not emotionally tied into that, you would be, hey, that's great information. That's valid. The banana blueberries is just the same thing. Just the people are going to be a bit more emotional about it, because I'm emotional about it. That's a study I wish I didn't see,
It's really information can become crippling in a way, because the more you learn, you realize you have to exert more and more nuanced thinking, and it can really cripple some people into what the, well, I do nothing right. I can't eat plants. I can't eat meat.
So true. And I had a client this morning that said that she was actually grateful that our coaching was getting her out of that. She's like, you're adding so much clarity because it's so confusing. And I don't want to add more confusion to this. So what are we going to do? We're going to go to some kind of solution, right? So what I've been doing is just changing my smoothies around a little bit. I still enjoy a banana berry smoothie, but I acknowledge now, I'm like, okay, cool. The polyphenols probably aren't coming in that one. And the contribution of polyphenols coming from my blueberries is a lot, compared to the rest of my diet. So that means that I could rotate and do a mango, a frozen mango with banana smoothie one day, and then I can do a berry mango smoothie another day.
So that's exactly what I do, and I actually think it tastes better. This is my personal preference. Once I started removing banana, I'm like, oh, this smoothie's got 2 times better. So we're just talking about separating it. If you care about this nuance, just separate it, just take it out. I put berries with yogurt, take out the banana, put it somewhere else, and monitor this lifestyle habit.
Yeah. But yeah, I just think it's it's an easy change. I'm glad I learned it, even though it just pisses me off, because it's one of these things where you that really screwed a very nice breakfast or post-workout little smoothie or something like that.
But you know what? Here's the thing, last thing. If you love it more than the perceived potential consequence, keep doing it. Just roll with it. Because if there's a difference between you having a really nutrient-dense quality smoothie, there are other benefits to berries besides polyphenols, as we talked about way earlier. So don't let this dissuade you from having your favorite smoothie of the day if that makes you feel amazing. Go do it. It's okay. Don't get neurodivergent about it. You'll be okay.
Yeah, good point.
Next.
If you can't get the magnesium bread, what supplement should I take and how much?
So the magnesium bread, shout out to Gluten-free Precinct, who has not given us a sponsorship yet, unfortunately, even though we've supplied them with tens of thousands of dollars worth of income.
Shout out to my boys who commented on that video that I did of them saying, give him a sponsorship, give him a sponsorship.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And they I saw the likes they gave, but no follow-up email just yet.
It's okay. Small family business. Yeah. So this bread we can get from Melbourne is very high in magnesium. It's like 600-700 milligrams per 2 slices.
Yeah, 660 per 100 grams, which is about 2 slices.
So then people are asking, what can you do as a replacement?
Yeah. So the reason it's high, it's the ingredient, the chickpea. So it's a besan flour, which is chickpea flour.
And
so
there's pumpkin seeds as well.
Is there?
Yeah, there's some seeds in there too, but go on.
But the main player would be the chickpea, because chickpeas are very high. Now, chickpeas are probably not the solution for a lot of people ongoing. It's probably just like not something that people are going to consume in overwhelmingly large amounts to supply that magnesium. And then like you sort of point out, like the seeds and other nuts, they're great contributors of magnesium, but not necessarily at the lowest calorie intake either. So it really depends on sort of what you're playing with. So it does get hard. So I just think that supplementation is a good avenue to go down. You know, I mean, like 50% of people do not get the required intake of magnesium. 20% of people don't even get half the intake. And that's just the recommended or adequate intakes, which in both of our opinions would be too low.
Yeah. So I don't know if you use the same marker, but I found a study that referred to 7 milligrams per kilogram of body weight for magnesium. 7. Have you seen this or heard of it?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, so now we have a relative amount of magnesium, and I realized I was taking too little. Hence why I changed my supplementation strategy.
When people ask me this, I'm like, just test. Magnesium is easy and cheap to test. Get yourself in the range. When people talk about the ranges, I'm like, look, the reference ranges here in Australia are still a little bit low for my liking. I don't know what labs you're using, but the lower end of that reference range is often around that 0.75 or something like that. I would say get yourself to 0.9.
Absolutely.
0.9, nice number. And then you will know how much magnesium you need to take. But where could you start someone? I mean, yeah, that 7 milligrams per kilo body weight's not a bad place to start. You're going to find if you're relying a lot upon supplementation that you're going to need to split that up. Otherwise, you're going to probably put yourself on the toilet, with multiple servings. I don't really mind the types of magnesium, but I think I just kind of default more to like the magnesium glycinate out of a lot of things because I think it's a well-absorbed magnesium. It's a pretty good value for money.
Yeah, and what I prefer to do, like that works. And I think what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to try some strategies. And if you don't see an increase in magnesium, you're going to need to look at maybe some other types. We would just say is avoid oxide. Oxide is typically used to induce diarrhea and like help flush people, fix constipation or treat it in a second. Avoid that because it's poorly absorbed. But I like to go the Fusion brand, the Advanced Magnesium is one brand I use because it has a combination. And if I can rely on not just one derivative of magnesium, but a few together, it's generally a more holistic approach I like.
And if you're in Australia, since they went into a particular very massive chain of pharmacies, that Fusion brand is very cheap now.
Oh, they did? Good for them.
Yeah. You can get those bad boys 50% off half the time.
And I think important to remember about magnesium, it is important for the activation synthesis of vitamin D. And so if you see low vitamin D on a blood panel and you're like, I get a lot of sun, if you look at magnesium, you're going to see a correlation. It's like, oh, low magnesium, oh, that could be a player there.
Yeah. Well, 80% of the steps involved in converting, cholesterol into the active forms of vitamin D are dependent on magnesium as a cofactor.
And as we've talked about before, the ATP molecule, okay, the thing that literally every single chemical reaction in the body requiring ATP, it has a magnesium molecule attached to it. So to create energy, you need magnesium. So this is a vital, vital nutrient for your body.
Absolutely.
Cool?
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting we went supplement, not nutrition. It's generally one of those things actually that we generally avoid or try not to get just by with food.
Yeah. But I think in knowing full well, if you end up in and we've said this before, if you end up in a state of deficiency, having adequate intakes is often not going to get you back into a state of repletion. The adequate intakes or recommended daily intakes, they are there to try and keep you away from getting to that point. Once you're there, you need to be thinking higher doses, than that. And that, sometimes you can do that through food. I mean, if you had access to the magnesium bread, amazing.
Yeah.
That is a great choice. It is hard to access, obviously. And doing it through other whole foods, especially when it comes to something like magnesium, is hard. Why? Well, one of the reasons why is that the soil is so different from what it was 100 years ago. And that's just not with magnesium, but the soil is like way less replete in a lot of those nutrients.
Exactly. So we are coming at it with a different strategy here.
Yeah.
A better strategy.
Yeah. But that's fair play. I think for the most part, we definitely always try to use nutrition as the foundation.
But I think it's one of those things that it is an outlier in this case, and it's an exception to that rule.
Yeah, I agree. I think a zinc deficiency is nearly an outlier as well, except for the ability to use oysters often, which we've talked about as before.
But so many people just don't want to do it.
Yeah. I had a client recently raise a good point to me that she's been, using the smoked oysters, which are tinned. So that means that you can have cheap, easy access to higher frequency than just kind of having like a dozen oysters on the weekend.
I just don't actually finish the thought.
Well, they've got a meaty texture, so they're nowhere near as much of a fishy texture. And she can mix them in with all of her stir fries and other things that she does. And she goes, I don't even taste them. It adds like an umami taste, if anything, like a meaty taste to whatever the dish is. So I reshared that on my Instagram and then had a few other people reach out to me saying they were doing the same. And I thought that's actually a really good way to do the thing that I think is necessary if you're really trying to replete zinc levels through oysters. I don't think you can binge, a weekly dozen oysters and have the same level of outcome you can if you can just have mildly elevated portions of zinc over the week.
Agreed.
And that goes the same for nearly any nutrient. Maybe some of the fat soluble ones are a little bit different.
But we need to, do you know, an average oyster, I believe, if I recall correctly, is 10 to 20 milligrams of zinc per oyster. Do you know about smoked or the canned ones? I don't know how much is in it.
No, neither do I. And obviously they would shrink through that process, but they do look like small oysters overall as well. So when you say 10 to 20 milligrams per oyster, not only is that just like a variation, I suppose, where they are and where they're grown, but it'll also be in the size of the oysters. So undoubtedly, like the really big oysters that you can barely get down, they're probably the highest in zinc as well. So you think about the tinned variety, you'd be going by the grams, I suppose, but going by the weight of it and just averaging it.
Okay, so we don't know exactly, but you can relative it and see if it changes your markers. One thing important to mention about magnesium and zinc is that talking about over in the Trinity retreat how important gut health is, and if you're not noticing changes and you're taking supplements and you're eating this food high in magnesium and zinc, you're not noticing changes in your energy levels or your blood levels, well, you gotta look at the gut. Because if you do not have adequate hydrochloric acid levels in your stomach and the pH level of your stomach acid is too high, you will literally not be able, your stomach acid will not be able to effectively pull apart these mineral ions from the food matrix and then absorb them. And so don't get dissuaded or disappointed if the things aren't working, because usually there's something else downstream that's inhibiting the absorption and digestion and assimilation of these nutrients, and looking at the gut is a crucial one right there.
Yeah. I didn't really see this as a question in some of the gut questions that you got come through, but I think this is a really big contribution towards some of the nutritional deficiencies that we see from people who you would otherwise expect them kind of not to see because of the level of nutritional literacy they have and consistency. So if they're, you have a client and you see they're really good at executing a fairly decent amount of nutrition quality coming in, yet you're seeing these problems. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of that really does come down to just gut function that could be improved as well. And one of the first tiers would be that hypochlorhydria or lack of stomach acid,
which we'll talk about soon.
Yeah.
Hashimoto's and Brazil nuts.
Yeah, this we would.
Do you want to just define Hashimoto's for the people who don't know what that is?
Yeah, so Hashimoto's is an autoimmune thyroiditis. Basically where the immune system starts attacking various components of the thyroid gland and system. That leads to, generally speaking, an underactive thyroid. So it'll be represented on a blood panel, usually with an elevated TSH and low thyroid hormones. And what we really need to be checking is those antibodies, so those auto antibodies to those parts of the system that it's attacking. It leads to, the common symptoms of low thyroid, so, low energy, poor digestive function, poor relation to other hormones, temperature regulation, cognitive issues, all those kind of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then one of the deficiencies that we see with Hashimoto's being relevant to help it is a selenium deficiency. Hence, Brazil nuts being somewhat helpful there. But then you also made a post, and you were the first one to show me this study of Brazil nuts and how the selenium content is so wide in Brazil nuts.
I got this from Chris Masterjohn, by the way.
Okay.
So he pointed this out. I think it was in a 2014 symposium. He did like an ancestral health, like a paleo symposium that I was watching, and he spent the whole talk discussing soil. It was really fascinating. Like he's a very smart guy, but that particular symposium that he did was a really good talk. But anyway, I was amazed at that too, because we would always just say, hey, selenium, great, Brazil nuts, great source of selenium. But then as he pointed out, and I shared, like the variation is anywhere from 11 to 288% of the recommended daily intake. That is like completely Russian roulette. Like we would never accept that kind of variability for anything that we do in nutrition or health. Like it's just crazy.
I know, right?
And because selenium has a U-shaped curve, so it's not like, it doesn't matter. It's like, yeah, it could potentially matter a lot, okay? Because like selenium toxicity is not a good thing. And it comes down to the fact that like in plants, there's no known mechanism by which they use selenium. So they don't really have a way that it's stabilized, unlike in animals. Okay, so it really comes down to its the content in the soil, and then the plant just lets the selenium in or out or whatever as it goes. So if it happens to be in like a really rich selenium content soil, that's where you're going to find insanely high levels of selenium coming through in those nuts. So the point is, I did this post hopefully clarifying that you should not use Brazil nuts for any type of repletion of selenium, because there's far better choices to use. You could enjoy some some Brazil nuts, but I just wouldn't be going crazy on them, that's for sure.
Is that okay? Well, I feel like then we should provide an alternative for the people, because so Brazil nuts, bit of Russian roulette here, probably not the ideal solution here for your hypothyroidism. So what then would be your recommended strategy from a nutritional and supplemental?
Yeah, I think, I mean, you got some other high selenium foods. Tuna's a really good one, when it comes to high selenium, and other fish. Just generally, meats in general have like a higher level of selenium, and it's stable, things like turkey and things like that, right? But if you're going to use a supplement, like typically when you look up Hashimoto's and selenium supplementation, you'll find probably anywhere between 80 to 200 micrograms. I really think that 200 is definitely on the upper side for, dosages. What I would say again is you test. Okay, you test. And it's because even when you look at the literature on selenium and Hashimoto's, like it's not overwhelmingly convincing. It's not. Yet when, like I've looked at surveys when they look at practitioners, I think it was a European survey when they, is it the Hashimoto Society of whatever, and how many of the practitioners would recommend selenium, even though most of them acknowledge an underwhelming amount of peer-reviewed evidence for it. On a clinical setting, it was well over half of them would still recommend selenium. And I think maybe what that goes to show is like as an adjuvant to other therapies that are going on, like it's definitely a potential candidate from a nutrient perspective.
Okay. To be careful, an adjunct potential candidate. We're not talking about a complete solution here. Mm-hmm. And just to clarify, I just needed to double check the selenium RDI, recommended daily intake, just to give you a baseline understanding, 55 micrograms. 55
to 70, I think, depending on where you are.
Yeah, so like breastfeeding women going to be 70.
Yeah. So again, it's really easy to blow past those numbers with something like a Brazil nut. Brazil nut's just not your go-to for like a consistent, accurate way to look at, addressing selenium issues.
That's right. Okay. Content there? You want to move to hypothyroidism and gluten-free diet?
Yeah, well, this was kind of related. That's why we sort of clustered it. So do you get asked about the gluten-free diet for Hashimoto's at all?
Not directly that question. It's just a one potential strategy that does come up, but I haven't been asked that directly, no.
I get asked a lot, and maybe that's just because, I have a bit of a selection bias to working with clients with Hashimoto's. I have a lot. At any given time, they're always probably one of the larger groups of health concerns that I'm working with. And the literature isn't overwhelming on that either.
No, it's mixed.
It's very mixed. And so there's two types of diets that they'll really look at with Hashimoto's. One will be a gluten-free diet, and the other would be autoimmune protocol style diet. So one that eliminates like a lot of potential food triggers as such, like gluten being one of them, for instance. Neither are great. You know, what they do tend to notice over these trials, you know, and they might be 6 months in length, for instance, which you could definitely argue is not a long time when it comes to this type of issue. You know, you need to be thinking larger time frames. But what they do notice is potentially a difference in quality of life when they use those QOL surveys, okay, which, you know, you could argue the usefulness of that, and a drop in inflammation. Okay, which I think you can definitely make a great case for. That's great because one of the main components of, you know, Hashimoto's is inflammation, you know, driving dysfunction in the thyroid gland.
How many of your Hashimoto's clients do you see have gut issues?
Yeah, most of them.
Okay, so we could argue on the mechanism of what's helping. Is the gluten-free diet helping because it's reducing the underlying inflammation as a result of intestinal permeability and the inflammational cascade that will happen once the gluten proteins reach circulation and cause all these increases in different immunoglobulins and inflammatory pathways? Is it helping because of that or because of some other pathway? I don't really care, to be honest. Yeah. It's all just like mental masturbation, cool science shit. But if the link for your thyroid issues, we have a high confidence that they're also linked to gut issues or they're like cousins of each other, then a gluten-free strategy, if improving symptoms, probably you could hazard a guess is also because you may have some gut issues too.
Yeah. And I think this is like when people ask me for my opinion on it, they sort of say, well, how many of your Hashimoto's clients would be on a gluten-free diet? I would say like nearly all of them are. To what consistency they adhere to that 100% is different because some of them are more bought into it, experimenting with it than others. But we track. That's the main thing is like we track the gut symptoms and I want to see if they improve. And this is often what happens is someone with an underlying thyroid condition like this, they'll often have constipation, they'll have slow bowel movements, they'll have bloating and distension and pain and things like that as well. And so they're really easy things to go, great, we're going to track that daily. We're going to give a system that, you know, we can start to see progression on. And, you know, when you go ahead and challenge that with like a pizza on a weekend, you know, like 3 months down the line, and we see like a huge, you know, worsening of your symptoms, then we kind of know we're probably on the right track, at least as it pertains to the gut. And then probably as it pertains to inflammation as a whole, and then that's something that's underlying, you know, the bedrock of anything, right, when it comes to disease. So, yeah, I think it has a lot of utility. I don't think that someone going gluten-free is necessarily going to be the sufficient thing by itself, though.
No. Do you see, because we talk about selenium, we talk about gluten-free. I totally agree. This is just reducing the inflammatory cascade that's happening to give you a better chance to handle it. What are you more excited about with Hashimoto's as a stronger advocate or candidate to helping address it, even from a lifestyle perspective, perhaps too?
The nutrition?
Nutrition, or just giving people, because maybe they're like, oh, selenium's not that good. Oh, gluten-free's mixed. It's like, oh, what can I do?
Yeah, so for me, like I can't help myself but think of it more in looking at regulating the immune system and like whilst at the same time trying to tease out what those root cause factors are for that dysfunction. You know, so, you know, I'll be big on any of the botanicals that can give us inflammatory, like a better inflammatory outcome. Okay, I love the omega-3s and the pro-resolving mediators, anything that can drive, you know, a drop in inflammation in that way. But what you typically see in Hashimoto's is a large amount of oxidative stress and mitochondrial dysfunction. You know, and that just comes back down to like all the things that we love that we know nourish that system. You know, like having a good glutathione status, an intracellular antioxidant that is essential and known to be very low. Selenium is the cofactor for glutathione peroxidase. Yeah, so that's kind of how it comes into the equation. For protecting the thyroid gland, because the thyroid gland has to make a lot of hydrogen peroxide to sort of like put the iodine where it needs to go to create free thyroid hormones. But here's my gripe with Hashimoto's. It's actually more to do with the fact that in a developed country like Australia, the number one reason for hypothyroidism is autoimmune thyroiditis. It's not an iodine deficiency. Okay, whereas in a developing country, it's an iodine deficiency. It's like people don't have access to that. We have like iodized salts and access to fish. And in fact, you can, and I've nearly done a post about this. I'm like, you probably, if you have Hashimoto's, want to be very careful about having too much iodine. It's not written well into the literature just yet, but there are some reasons to be wary in that when we look at populations in which they've iodized the salt, so they've fortified the food at a population level versus not, and you see a higher incidence of Hashimoto's. Okay, so, and here's my problem in Australia is that we still think about like the way that we test TSH, a pituitary hormone, to see potentially how the thyroid's going, and then we're lucky to test free T3 and free T4. Good on you for getting that far, and then trying to go the final way and getting your antibodies tested, your TPO and thyroglobulin. It's just like you're probably going to get that done privately. Let's face facts. Now, the unfortunate thing is, and that's because in our mainstream model, I still think we treat it like we're dealing with a developing country, not rather than a developed country. It's not stemming from a iodine deficiency. Yet getting to the diagnosis, getting to the ability to understand that there's an immune dysfunction takes forever. Yeah. So I think we've kind of nearly got it backwards. We need to be testing these antibodies earlier. And this is where it gets hard though, is that you can be euthyroid, meaning you have normal looking TSH,
yes.
normal looking T3,
yep.
normal looking T4,
yep.
and your antibodies are there,
yep.
rising. They're getting bigger and getting bigger until you're no longer euthyroid. You have fucked up thyroid.
And this describes a perfect example of traditional medicine system and functional medicine, functional health. Yeah. A proactive approach versus a reactive approach.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's something that's changed in the way that I've done testing over the last couple of years, is that I've had my suspicions, I'm looking at things, there's gut things in the way, and I'm just thinking this often female client, I'm like higher risk here for something like Hashimoto's. Go and test the antibodies. Antibodies are up before thyroid hormones are down. And I'm like, I think we got this nice and early. Yeah. We need to make our moves here now, because this in 5 years' time probably doesn't look anything like this.
That's right.
And look, the mainstream medical model still does not have a solution. They have a symptom fix, and it's called thyroxine. You'll get T4, So you'll basically go in there and you get a medication that is the sort of inactive thyroid hormone that may relieve some symptoms. Absolutely. I've still got clients using thyroxine when and if needed as part of the solution. But it's not looking at addressing the root cause of the problem at all.
What do you see as the biggest root causes?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. I really do. I don't know if we can really nut down on any given thing. I think look, as you move further away from the equator, there seems to be higher incidences of autoimmune diseases. We see lower vitamin D levels. Like people make the argument for, supplementing high vitamin D for, most autoimmune conditions. I think that could play a role in it, but like how much of it's also coming from like a, geographical location of like sun exposure and things like that as well. I think a lovely medical intervention that was forced upon us all a couple of years back. Who knows if that set off some triggers and things, because I don't know about anyone else, but I saw a little explosion of autoimmune things going worse after that.
Interesting.
Because I track things. That was not nice at all. So there's factors like that.
Yeah.
And then there's something which, a lot of functional medicine practitioner and that world will look at, which is molecular mimicry. Are there components of gluten, gliadin that are causing a confusion, as such with the immune system, and then going on to cause an attack. And that may be a component of it as well. Nonetheless, what I think is a reason for concern in the way that we look at hypothyroidism in this country is that I think that our model, our mainstream medical model, is still stuck thinking like we're trying to investigate it like a developing country.
That's a great point.
And you know what it leads? This is what really pisses me off.
That's good.
It leads people to do their own research, right? And they see hypothyroidism, and then they start supplementing heaps of iodine. Oh. Right? And I'm like, you don't know that you don't have Hashimoto's yet. And if you had Hashimoto's, I would not have you supplementing high dose iodine.
You can make things so much worse.
Exactly. This is what fucking grinds me.
So as you guys can see, it's quite complex and nuanced. There are a multitude of factors influencing Hashimoto's. please go see a practitioner and proactively get, because Ben and I, we can get, we're registered to get certain more advanced testing, so we can get those tests for you, okay? So it doesn't even have to be us, it can be anybody. So just make sure you're looking at it in a comprehensive way and ideally getting those autoimmune antibodies tested, and you could probably save yourself a lot of years of headache.
The one thing, because you did say, was there anything that was potentially cool for it?
Yeah, all right.
Remember when I told you about that study that I found on low-level laser therapy?
Oh, stop. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Photobiomodulation.
That's right, PBM.
My man.
So there was a study. I contacted the researcher. I think she was in Turkey.
Yeah.
Right? This was a couple of years back. And it was a couple of sessions with this laser on the thyroid gland, looking at like infrared level laser treatment. And it was literally, I can't even remember, it was like a minute, a session was a minute long. There was like maybe a maximum of 6 sessions or something like that. And then they checked the antibodies for months afterwards, and it was one of the most significant drops of like antibodies I've ever seen. And I had to contact her and say, am I reading this right? Like, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, yep, you got it. I'm like, was there any follow-up? Do you know of another group that's published any work? And she's like, no, nothing. And I was just like, this is crazy. And so then I contacted a place here in Melbourne to see if I could get the unit. And they can sell it to public. You can buy it. And I was like, okay. I didn't want to go ahead and do it because I'm just like, I don't know what a laser in my hands, There's probably some kind of technique thing that I should use before I go trying that. Because my wife has Hashimoto's. Zoe has Hashimoto's. That's why I have a bit of a vested interest. So I didn't do it. But nonetheless, I think it's very interesting and potentially another therapeutic that could be used in whether it's these, instead of using a laser, you could use a light panel, these scattered light things.
Yeah, the red light therapy.
Red light therapy, yeah.
Well, see, if you just explore that mechanism of how photobiomodulation is working, particularly at the level of the mitochondria, I wonder if you could extrapolate out the mechanism and then use other interventions that you have a lot more confidence on. Because if it is at the level of the mitochondria, I'm wondering, okay, what other nutrients, what other strategies here could we be approaching this situation with?
Yeah. Yeah.
Food for thought.
I then approached actually a doctor here in Melbourne who does the laser therapy, and I asked her if she would do it on a thyroid.
Nice.
She said no. She said the TGA would come after her,
TGA don't have to know.
She said, listen.
Between me and you, TGA don't have to know.
You know what she said to me? She said, I got a very good business right here. You look out there, you see that waiting list, because it was all musculoskeletal.
Yeah.
She goes, I have approval for this with musculoskeletal. You see everyone coming in here, we're booked out.
Yeah.
I'm not wrecking that. I'm like,
fair enough.
I can understand.
Well, if there's any practitioners out there who want to actually experiment and having a big impact on people with thyroid conditions, let us know.
Mm-hmm.
Next.
Okay, a little bit of a crossover here. So obviously you've just done your gut mastery component, I suppose, of Trinity, or probably just started it, I'm guessing.
Well, we did 4 presentations, hundreds of slides. I pumped out so many slides. It was an insane amount of productivity. So gut foundation, 67 slides. Then we went on to hypochlorhydria, low stomach acid, 33 slides. Then we went to intestinal permeability, another 33 slides. And then I walked them through my complete gut guide that I did with Mandy Hopper on small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So a lot of content, That's why you're going to see them talk about a lot the gut right now. So watch out for them. And one of the topics that came up, okay, so let me zoom out for you guys. Why is this important? So we have this condition called anytime you see that, it means low. Hypochlorhydria. Chlorhydria is acid. So you see this expression of low stomach acid and higher stomach acid pH. Okay, so why is that important? Because you need an acidic stomach to be able to digest the food you're eating and not walk away with symptoms like bloating, gassiness, and then downstream from that is nausea and fatigue because you're not breaking down these nutrients properly. And so if you're not, I heard this saying, it's like, you're not what you eat, you're what you absorb. Okay, because just because you're eating something does not mean you're absorbing it. Remember that. So, to make stomach acid, hydrochloric acid, you need certain nutrients. Some of those nutrients include zinc and thiamine. Quite commonly, people are deficient in these. And if you already have poor stomach acid and high stomach pH, then you're already not going to do the best job absorbing these. And so one of the questions we got was, the usefulness and the type duration of zinc and B1. Because zinc and B1 are like the building blocks for stomach acid. And potassium as well, I don't know if you've seen, helps the hydrogen ions within stomach acid. So if you want a nice little hack to improve your gut health, zinc, potassium, thiamine. Zinc L-carnosine is usually a go-to of mine because it's been also shown to help with stomach ulcers. TTFD or benfotiamine, depending on your glutathione levels. I think, I need to look at my notes, you want to go TTFD if you have low GSH and your GSH is okay. So your GGT is lower.
Yeah, well, if you so part of the metabolism of that type of thiamine, the TTFD, does require glutathione. So it just puts an extra demand, I suppose, on your resources.
Right.
So,
right.
And this is what I say, like when some people may have like not an adverse reaction, but just like I suppose an adverse reaction, but just in a mild setting with TTFD. One of the things we wonder is, do you have an insufficient supply of glutathione?
Right.
So sometimes that's kind of rectified by just helping someone out with some N-acetylcysteine or some liposomal glutathione. But nonetheless, I think you don't have to necessarily start with TTFD. You could start with like thiamine, hydrochloride, benfotiamine, and then work your way into TTFD as well.
For sure.
I think TTFD is really good. Like, you talked about before for cognition. That's part of my stack, ribose, TTFD, and the creatine now.
That's a big stack.
Yeah, it's good.
And then potassium. So the standard dietary intake, if I recall correctly, is 3.8 grams. It's like this optimal level. And I use a lot of pomegranate juice for that as well in my intra-training. So, and kiwis are also they're very high in vitamin C. So high potassium foods with supplemental thiamine and zinc. And how long you would run that for? You probably should see some symptom resolution, I would say, within the coming months. But, I've been speaking a while here. What's your 2 cents in exploration with these compounds? Yeah, look, there's a couple of things. The first is that, the main thing you want to be doing concurrently is, looking at one of the reasons why people could have had the hypoglycemia. Like, how can that come about? Stress is a really big one. Oh, yeah.
Another is probably just really poor dietary habits when it comes to overfeeding and highly processed foods and things like that. That just tends to have a worsening effect on your gut as a whole, but even as it pertains to things like you're getting adequate zinc in and these things that are fundamental for having adequate hydrochloric acid production. Now, in my experience, if someone's reached themselves of a very poor state of hyperglycemia, you may be beneficial by going in there with some betaine hydrochloride to start with as an adjuvant while you're currently doing some zinc and thiamine.
That's right.
And what I mean by that is you're basically going in there with a straight up to the point benefit in hydrochloric acid so that you can make the most out of all of the nutrients coming in, relieve the burden of the digestive system having to do it by itself. You're basically spotting your gut.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. You're basically spotting those reps. You know what I mean? And so you do that at the start whilst you're incorporating these nutrients and then you can try and pull those away and then operate off a fully nutrient replete digestive system doing
Absolutely.
its thing. That would be my point. Yeah.
And also, because I commonly use Thorne Biogest, big shout out. They have a really good digestive enzyme supplement. But before then, you can simply try, big hack for digestion, half teaspoon of apple cider vinegar in half a cup of warm water 5 minutes before each meal, and observe how much your symptoms of bloating and improved digestion are improved, because the apple cider vinegar is helping create a little bit more of an acidic state in your stomach to help give that a boost, because you want your stomach acid is like the pH of a lemon. And so that's why also people put lemon and lime as well. But we typically like to go apple cider vinegar. If that's not working, you can try Swedish bitters, which is much more aggressive. And then obviously you can use digestive enzymes as well as an adjunct to that, which is a very cost-effective, simple guide that you can use to improve your digestion.
And sometimes it's worth working with someone, to be honest with you. Whilst you may not be overly symptomatic aside from like the bloating and things like that. Sometimes these clients will have, or these individuals will have reflux. So they'll be having splashback. It's uncomfortable. It's heartburn. Maybe there's some Nexium involved, God forbid, or these like PPIs and people are trying to reduce the stomach acid, which has a range of problems long term. But it's in my experience, getting clients off of those type of medications, often through actually fixing this kind of stuff, is not a long trip. Like I can't remember it taking longer than 12 weeks, even for my worst case. Right. And these are chronic users for decades, and sometimes, of things to lower their stomach acid.
So there you go.
Yeah. But I think in these cases, you do just have to reach out and work with someone, because otherwise you can be going about it and, maybe making things worse in the interim.
Absolutely. There's a whole host of complexities because, people will be like, oh, fiber's good for your gut. And it's like, oh, fiber can make your gut issues a lot worse. Prebiotics, probiotics, they can have a similar effect. There's a level of complexity that people don't even know what they don't know.
And also tracking, which I know we said over and over, but one of the things about our spreadsheets that we use with symptom tracking is that they are finely tuned to picking up progress and regression.
Absolutely.
And so then when I peel back on supplements, because this is the thing I say, I love to unsupplement. So we'll do this focus on the gut and these supplements, and you get this massive improvement. The Bristol stool scale is just a nice solid 4, bowel movements every day. We've got no bloating, no reflux. It's amazing. And I'm like, cool, we are going to wind these things up, taper them down. I want to unsupplement. And then sometimes, I had this recently where one of my clients started getting his reflux back, and, we dropped off his zinc carnosine, which was the last of it, probably about 8 weeks earlier. And I said, cool. He's like, can I go buy it again? I'm like, yeah, of course you can. I want you to. But you wouldn't have known that you needed to buy it unless we dropped it off. Do you get that? I'm looking after you here. We're trying to see what you don't need and, when you can head away from using those things. And I think that's really important for people to actually go through that. It's the same as doing a challenge. I have plenty of clients where we drop out these food groups, we recognize them as triggers, and then some of them can stay out because, they've just sort of changed as a person with dietary habits. But some of them you want to be able to test and go, look, how much of a contribution is this? This is a little bit off topic, but so I had a client who recently got some of the a BPC 157 product that had a few other ingredients in it, and one of them was PEA. And anyway, she used it and broke out in hives, like an allergic reaction. And I was thinking about it, and I didn't really click it was one of the other ingredients in this product, but it turns out she has an egg allergy. Okay, and she knew it. And one of the components in the PEA is kind of like derived from egg, So I was just like, okay, I'm not totally convinced this is it yet, but it happened. Like we kind of knuckled it down because we track everything. Like, okay, cool, you use this, look what happened. And I said, what we're going to do is we're going to retest this. We're going to challenge it maybe 12 weeks down the line. And I need to know that was what it was,
Oh, yes, that's TBA.
It's TBA, yeah.
Cool.
We're yet to do it. But this is just another scenario where you have something come in and they're like, I need to know that that's what it was, because this is a multi-ingredient unit thing that happened after. And I'm like, there's only 5 or 6 things in it. And I was scratching my head to start with. And then I'm like, oh my God, that actually makes sense. But I need to know it was that.
Yeah, imagine someone trying to do that by themselves. Yeah. I have no idea. 17 compounds, what the hell? I'm glad. It was good she's got you. Last 3 questions, now coming to your major field of expertise. Talking about PEDs and just generally, this isn't even just PEDs right now. Favorite ways to reduce blood pressure. That's something we can both talk about very well.
Yeah. There's another one here called, and how do we manage that as well? I feel like it's nearly the same question. Yep. So this doesn't even have to be related to PEDs. I mean, we can kind of keep this just general as well. So one of the things I came out with recently was that post on quercetin. I say it wrong, but I'm going to...
Do you?
Quercetin, that's how I say it.
Oh, it's not that?
No, apparently it's quercetin. Everyone tried to tell me after I did my reel.
Quercetin.
But there's lots of things that I say wrong. I'm happy. I don't feel like I need to change my quercetin. But look, it can drop blood pressure by 7 points. Plus, it's another one of our amazing polyphenols that has a range of health benefits when it comes to inflammation, microbiome modulating, upregulating antioxidants, the NRF2 pathway. So it's an incredible nutrient. And I got talking about it recently over a bunch of posts as it relates to steroid use. And that is because when we use steroids, typically you'll get an elevation in the red blood cell synthesis, and that'll lead to higher red blood cells. Your hematocrit goes higher, so the amount of red blood cells within your plasma as a percentage. Your hemoglobin is higher. Your iron intake becomes higher. And so these all come together, usually with an elevated or a risk of higher blood pressure, hypertension. And hypertension is the number one risk factor for cardiovascular problems. It is no joke. People need to be checking their blood pressure. And one of the reasons I did this post, by the way, because this just comes down to a coaching thing, is I was just getting pissed off at my clients not checking their blood pressure. And so I came out publicly and did right, I'm going to do a couple of posts on blood pressure.
Love it.
Best thing I ever did.
Yeah.
For my own clients to start checking their blood pressure.
You listen then, motherfuckers.
That's exactly what happened. I was like, I'm going to do this more often. Whenever I'm having a client that's not doing something, I'm just going to publicly
That's
post
what I
it
do.
Because you do?
Yeah.
Why don't you tell me you do this? It works really well.
Oh, it works wonderfully because it's not direct at the individual. We're not trying to, because we know.
But do you get those messages go, I feel like that was aimed at me? Because I got a few of those and I was like, this is perfect.
It worked. Yeah, that's happened. And I think it's a great way, just a little side note for content creators, it's a great way to create content. Things that frustrate you, problems that you're having that you're not getting the solution to with your clients, just make content out of it.
Yeah. It's good. And what's even better? A couple of my boys that I coach who, they're great coaches and also coaching guys that are running steroids like me, they're like, man, all my clients started messaging me their blood pressures. And I'm like,
good.
This is great. I had a little ripple effect there.
Good for you.
So I was very happy with that.
That's
but
awesome.
We got off track here. So
strategies.
Yeah, so strategies. So I think, one of the elements you need to be looking at is obviously your use of steroids if that's your thing, but there are some particular nutraceuticals that can come into play. Because Quercetin is one of my favorite because it looks at some of the multiple things that are occurring with steroid use, which it can address more than one of them. It can help with too much iron being absorbed. Okay, so we can help regulate that, which is great. It can help with the blood pressure, and it can and it does that through a variety of mechanisms, as well. So I think that's a really good thing. Other things that I do would be obviously having a baseline level of aerobic fitness. This is why this whole anti-cardio movement, which I feel, I don't know because I know we run in slightly different circles with our coaching realms, but in the bodybuilding scene, at least in Australia, as I kind of get it now, I feel like it's toned down a lot. I feel like 5 years ago, there was this no cardio movement where it's almost a hashtag. And I was like, why are you bragging about this? I have no idea why you would brag, how you see that as a
I think it's the equivalent of someone bragging that they smoke or that a bit of an exaggeration, or they smoke or they're overweight.
Yeah,
almost.
I think it emanates from the ability to get shredded easier than other people. And that is when someone goes, oh, look, I'm 4,000 calories in, and I'm two weeks out.
Hashtag no cardio.
Yeah, hashtag no cardio. That's kind of where it is. Or it's
dickhead.
Hey, I'm a smart coach. I don't need my clients to do cardio. It's such oxymoron, even to say that out loud.
Look, I get it. Yes, you don't need it to get the body composition effect.
Yes.
But why is that the only thing we're measuring?
Exactly. And why on earth would it be the metric that you use when you're dealing with the clients that are highest risk category for shit going wrong? That makes no fucking sense.
So gross.
No fucking sense at all. So I think having a good level of cardiovascular fitness is really important. We've talked about there's other things that are important aside from just the numbers, and hypertension itself is looking at blood viscosity and coagulation factors and endothelial function. So those are a range of things that come into play here that just really quickly, because it's a big topic, but things that are on my radar. Consume omega-3s, EPA, DHA, have an omega-3 index that's over 8%. Use Omega Quant, that's the website. It's a blood prick test. Go and get it done. There's a calculator on there that will tell you how much omega-3 you need to probably eat to get yourself over 8%. Why 8%? Because in the literature, it means that you're at a lowest risk category for a bunch of stuff to do with heart risk. Nitric oxide and endothelial function. So we could be looking at any of the things that improve nitric oxide synthesis, like beetroot would be a good example of that. Even some of the pre-workouts and things are quite good as well. Coagulation factors. So again, this is where the omega-3s can kind of come in there too. And also just a lot of the anti-inflammatory NRF2 polyphenols, there's a lot of crossover here with the benefits to that whole side of the health as well.
Okay. Well said. I'm going to do a little summary, including the ones that you said and the ones that haven't been mentioned, because there seems to be this, and the range of blood pressure for sensitivity towards ischemic heart disease, cardiovascular disease seems to be getting closer and tighter. So we're seeing even elevation, technically being classified like upwards of the high 120s on the systolic side, early 130s. So it doesn't take much to have a linear increase in CVD. Nutritional factors and lifestyle factors. I'm just going to really roll 10 off, and then we can finish and close the bow. Obviously, obesity is going to unfavorably do it. Increased energy intake. Like you said, a lower omega-3 index. Increased sodium intake depends, but particularly for people who have unhealthy lifestyle risk factors and people who are what's called salt sensitive. That's important. Low potassium intake is associated with increased blood pressure, low magnesium status, low dietary fiber, increased alcohol. There's some nutrient and gene interactions, number 9, and there's some also medication interactions. So there's 10 combination of things that will unfavorably influence your blood pressure.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Content?
Yeah. I think the only thing I would add to that, because someone asked it on the managing blood pressure readings, would be to say, like, so if you're a steroid user or about to start that, and you're concerned about hypertension, what I would probably look at doing, this is a little formula that I use. I'm like, look, you want a baseline to know where your blood pressure is to start with. Then as you start using, whatever you're using per week, you want a new baseline after that's settled. Okay. And so I would sort of say, take 3 readings a week. Sometimes I'll be doing multiple readings in the morning, because a lot of guys have like a little white coat fever, even in the morning when they put the band on. So I'm like, the second reading's probably going to be lower than the first. That's okay. It's probably just you settling into a proper state where you should be reading that blood pressure. Take your 3 readings. Okay. Now, if everything is good and you're not escalating the dosage of what you're using or the calories and size that you're putting on, then and your blood pressure readings are good, like in a good range, then it probably de-emphasizes the need to be like to have a diligence that's like weekly and just like have it going all the time. And so I'll sort of say, look, I think you're okay to just not worry about it for a little while. But if you start putting on a couple % body weight, that changes the game. Totally. If you start escalating the dosage of what you're using, you've got to recalibrate and see where your blood pressure is. And then there is just the sake of, even if things don't change, but a long enough time period has lapsed, you go back in and you check where that blood pressure is as well. I think ultimately, as a cultural thing, and this comes back to the point about it's a hard thing to get some clients to read their blood pressure, is there just needs to be a change in awareness of just how important it is.
I think we need to put the fear of God into people.
Yeah.
Like really, it's like you just think, oh, blood pressure, it's something we ignore. And people don't measure it.
34% of Australians have hypertension, bro. 23% of them aren't medicated. Quarter of this country has high blood pressure, and they're not doing anything about it. They probably don't even know.
You're going to die earlier, champ, and you're not going to be around for your kids as long. So it's like not even about us.
Yeah.
Just trying to look up some fucking stats to put the fear in them.
But yeah, that's just like a general kind of like strategy, I suppose, I would commonly use with guys on steroids.
Hardening of the arteries, atherosclerosis, stroke, myocardial infarction, congestive heart failure, peripheral arterial disease, kidney damage, chronic renal therapy, retinopathy. You're not going to be able to see properly. Come on, man.
And this is the thing, right? So a lot of guys are really willing to do their blood work more than their blood pressure, right? Which is kind of funny.
Yeah, it is.
But
it's a lot harder.
That's my experience. I'm like, I can get guys to do blood work easy as. But knowing your numbers as well should drive more value into doing your blood pressure, because like even some of the things you just mentioned then. So if your lipids are shit, if your inflammation is out of control and oxidative stress is showing through in your blood work, you are going to be at a even worse risk with hypertension.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like you have to be thinking about this. Like you're, like one of the posts I did recently, and I'm actually like gathering guinea pigs right now. If anyone happens to listen to this and wants to jump on that bandwagon, is I recently found a herb, Terminalia bellerica, right? And this herb was
sounds exotic.
It does sound exotic. Whip something up exotic, don't you? that in 24 weeks use for chronic kidney disease patients, it improved their estimated glomerular filtration rate, which is a proxy for kidney health. The capacity for your kidney to do the thing that it's doing improved by 40%, which was fantastic. Now, typically in the bodybuilding world, we know that this is a problem because as far as like looking after the kidney health, because typically we will see a worsening of these. And we'll go to certain supplements like astragalus is one and garlic, and there's these other things. Anyway, when you look at the literature of those, and then I found this study and I was like, why haven't I heard of it? This is a 2020 study, so it's not old, but it's been around for a few years now. The first that I'd come across it because I was looking for, its terminology is brilliant for gout, right? And I was doing a little bit of content on gout. Nonetheless, I need to roll this out because I need to see this work. So I'm just like looking for guinea pigs on that. People ask me like, how much do you think it's going to work? And I'm like, look, it was on chronic kidney disease patients. Typically, they're probably going to see a decent amount of improvement because they're the lowest down, but also they're the worst case. So you can argue both sides of that, but I'm just shooting from the hip here. And I'm saying, I can see half that benefit from the inclusion of this at 1,000 milligrams twice a day. I would be happy with that. It's not the most expensive thing in the world.
I look forward to seeing these results.
Yeah.
You want to finish on any one of the last questions that we had on TRT? And, we did blood pressure. Yeah, favorite supplements for TRT. Blasting steroid cycles. So, you want to finish there?
Yeah, we have 1 minute. We'll just make this quick.
We got a few minutes. We have like 20% leeway.
Look, I think most of it's, again, dictated by the blood work, but I think it's fair to say more often than not, what people are going to be looking at is something for kidney function, like I just said. Having an omega-3 index over 8%, if that means you need supplementation, then go for it. More often than not, lipids will take a crash course. When you use steroids, citrus bergamot is hard to beat. If you were to pick a nutrient, but I would pick many, as in like use a formula that's designed for good lipid control, that might have things like garlic and vitamin E, CoQ10, and the citrus bergamot. But bergamot it's outstanding, I will just point out. I think sometimes just looking at if there's a reason for glucose control and things like bourbon's a really good one. When guys are entering especially muscle accrual phases and hypercaloric diets, bourbon is a fantastic nutrient as well. Often TUDCA or some kind of like liver agent can be very useful to put in there. I would think quercetin makes an appearance.
Quercetin?
Yeah. I think thiamine does often too, especially, and we didn't get to this before when you were talking about thiamine and the gut, but so highly processed, high carbohydrate diets deplete thiamine.
Yes.
So that's one of the reasons why I think most people have a subclinical thiamine deficiency, which we don't test. But you're eating a whole bunch of nutrient devoid foods that are high in carbohydrates, or you're deliberately going into high calorie phases with lots of carbohydrates, and functionally speaking, putting such a greater demand on thiamine without it naturally coming through that diet. So that can give cause for that as a consideration.
That is incredibly succinct and very, very valuable half dozen strategy. Woo! We're back, baby.
We are.
Thank you for listening. If any of you are excited about hearing about what I'm doing with Trinity, just message me. It's an application only, very exclusive group that I will do most likely another intake of. If you're curious about getting coaching from Ben Kant or I, just go to our Instagrams or message us. If you just got any questions or follow-ups, we'll probably do another one of these, and stay tuned to that.